For 3,000 years, the Velith Dominion ruled the stars, their living ships, their biological weapons. No one could resist. Entire civilizations surrendered at the first glow of their fleets. But today, they've met something different. One human ship, the USS Dakota, stands in their path. And when the aliens showed off their ultimate weapon, humanity answered. Commander Velith Dominion stretched his long, pale arms and felt the steady pulse of the Clithera's maw beneath his feet. The living hull resonated with power, each vibration the heartbeat of a predator that had carried him across 100 victories. Beyond the maw's translucent membrane, 11 sister ships glided in formation, their skins slick with bioluminescence, their lines curved and elegant like sea beasts cutting through black water. To the Velith Dominion, these were not ships, but living weapons, grown and bred for war. For 3,000 years they had enforced Velith rule on world after world. Entire civilizations had bent without resistance at the sight of their glow, but the rim had grown quiet. Another empty sector, Sub-Commander Drathis muttered from the nerve pit, his 6 eyes blinking in unison. 3 cycles without a challenge. The prey learned too quickly. Velith's mandibles clicked in irritation. He remembered better days, when prey fleets had at least struggled before collapsing. The Dominion was owed resistance. It was part of the rhythm of conquest. Without it, even victory soured. Then, Drathis's tone changed. Contact. Grid 77 Alpha. Velith moved to the viewing membrane. The maw focused its vision outward, pulling starlight into sharp relief. At first, nothing. Then, an outline, angular, impossible. By the drowned deep, Velith whispered. The object dwarfed their largest cruiser. No curves, no living glow. It was all edges and plating, metal stacked upon metal, weapon ports set into jagged ridges. It looked dead, a mountain carved hollow and hurled into the stars. Artificial, Drathis confirmed, voice uncertain. Alloy hull, no biological signatures. Dead things did not move. Yet this one glided with unmistakable purpose. Meanwhile, 3,000 kilometers away, aboard the USS Dakota, Captain Jake Morrison watched his tactical display with calm, professional interest. 12 unknown contacts closing, reported Lieutenant Amy Foster. Organic construction. They're not in any of our databases. Morrison nodded slowly. At 52, he had spent 3 decades fighting pirates and rebels in the colonies. But this was different. This was first contact. Real, undeniable. Distance? He asked. 4,000 kilometers and closing. Their formation suggests deliberate approach, not evasive. Morrison studied the display. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way, like living creatures pulsing with light. But beauty never meant safe. Communications? Nothing intelligible yet, said Lisa Park, but they're active across multiple frequencies. Morrison leaned forward in his chair, his weathered face calm. Engineering? Status? All systems green, replied Chief Collins. Reactors steady, armor charged, point defense online. We're ready for whatever comes. The Dakota was humanity's pride, a fortress built not for show, but survival. Its hull bristled with railguns, missile hives, and defense grids. It was humanity's answer to the question no one had dared to ask until now. What if we are not alone? And as the alien fleet closed, 12 living predators against one human fortress, both sides prepared to learn what that answer would be. The 12 ships of the Velith Dominion patrol cluster moved as one, shifting from silent drift into the ritual geometry of the harvest spiral. From a distance, it was beautiful. Living cruisers, arcing and weaving in perfect symmetry, their skins glowing with coordinated waves of bioluminescence. But to the Velith, it was not beauty. It was liturgy. The spiral was the Dominion's oldest intimidation maneuver, preserved in the archive of thorns and carried out before every serious battle. It was conquest expressed in motion. Across each hull, shifting colors formed the crown of drowning suns, a pattern recounting the Dominion's past victories. Entire civilizations had watched those lights spread across the sky and had bent the knee before the first spore cloud was fired. Now, it was the turn of the Dead Mountain. "Weapon strains are primed," Sub-Commander Drathis announced from the Moor's nerve pit. His 6 eyes shone with eagerness. Vitriol pods pressurized, plasma feeders warmed, spores ripening. On the Clithera's Moor, bioweapons stirred in their fleshy housings. Veins pulsed, organs swelled with toxins. The ship was eager, ready to feed. Commander Velith Dominion stood at the viewing membrane and felt the spiral unfold around him. It should have brought satisfaction. Instead, there was a faint unease he could not name. The alien ship, the mountain of angles, did not slow. It did not falter, it merely turned. And in that turn, the Velith saw something they had never seen before. The fortress rotated on its axis, presenting a full broadside profile, and every surface was weapons. Great railgun turrets pivoted smoothly, each the size of a fortress tower. Missile hives sat in clusters, launch tubes yawning like the mouths of predators. Laser apertures and point defense arrays dotted the hull in such density that the ship looked diseased with steel. It was not one predator against another. It was a nest of predators, all bristling at once. "By the drowned deep," Drathis whispered. "It is covered." The Velith tactical displays lit up with lines of impossible precision. Each human gun locked, not on the cluster as a whole, not on a random target, but on a specific cruiser. 12 alien ships, 12 firing solutions, each perfectly placed. Drathis' hands tightened on his nerve strands. "Commander, they have locks on us. All of us. Simultaneously." Velith Choir matrices, the living biocomputers bred for strategy, tried to calculate responses. They failed. The solutions updated too fast. The targeting lines moved with unhurried inevitability, anticipating the tiniest shifts in position before the Velith helms even completed them. It was like being caught in their own spiral, but executed with a perfection their organic minds could not match. Velith's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "How can they think faster than we can move?" Drathis finished, horror in his voice. For 3,000 years, the Dominion had relied on adaptation. Their ships learned, their weapons evolved, their spores devoured whatever resisted them. But adaptation required time. Time to observe, to respond, to breed countermeasures. The humans had taken that time away. On the Dakota's bridge, Captain Morrison studied the alien formation with a professional eye. The ships moved like a school of bioluminescent predators, spiraling with practiced menace. "Pattern analysis?" he asked. "Classic encirclement," Lieutenant Amy Foster replied, fingers quick across her controls. "Looks like a ritual intimidation maneuver. They're trying to box us, assuming we'll hold position." Morrison gave a small smile. "Always dangerous when an enemy assumes cooperation. Helm, roll us broadside. Tactical, lock solutions. Passive only. Don't show our teeth until they're already biting. The Dakota obeyed, its massive hull rotating with deliberate grace. Inside the fire control core, quantum processors and hardened AI routines calculated probabilities faster than any biological mind could comprehend. All targets acquired, Amy reported. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of satisfaction there. Every railgun has a solution. Missiles plotted for likely evasion routes. PD lattice already predicting micro-launches. Power? Morrison asked. Reactors at 60%. Chief Collins replied from engineering. This isn't even warming them up. On the displays, the alien formation faltered. Their luminous spirals wavered, patterns breaking. For the first time in recorded history, the harvest spiral hesitated.
Commander, Drathis breathed. They've placed us inside the spiral.
The truth settled like a weight on Verix's carapace. He could feel it in the rhythm of the Moor's pulse, in the nervous flicker of the other cruiser's biolights. They were the prey now. And then, before Verix could issue orders, the human ship spoke. The viewing membrane dilated, revealing the alien commander. He was not a towering beast or a figure draped in ritual finery. He was plain, middle-aged, mammalian, clad in a simple blue uniform. His voice was steady, unadorned. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Colonial Navy," he said. "You are in human space. State your intentions." The words struck like a spear. No flourish, no story, no ritual. Just a demand, direct, uncompromising. A question that assumed choice. Drathis's mandibles opened in shock. He asks us to explain? Verix forced his voice steady. The ritual had to be maintained. "I am Commander Verix Cathan of the Velith Dominion Patrol Cluster. We are the masters of these lanes. You will surrender your vessel and submit to our authority." The human nodded as if confirming an entry on a report. "And if we decline your offer?" No one had ever asked that. The Dominion's threats were accepted or defied, never clarified. "Then," Verix said, "you will be destroyed." "Understood," Morrison said with the calm of someone noting the weather. "Stand by." The channel closed. For a long moment, the Moor's bridge was silent, except for the faint thrum of its living hull. The crown of drowning suns flickered on the cruisers outside, its story suddenly hollow. "He did not sound threatened," Drathis whispered. Verix stared at the alien fortress and knew the sub-commander was right. The human had sounded bored. The harvest spiral shivered into action. "Deploy the bloom," Commander Verix Cathan ordered, the words rough in his throat. The ritual demanded follow-through. The spiral had been shown, the demand given, the prey had refused. Tradition left only one path. "Yes, Commander!" Sub-Commander Drathis's eyes gleamed as he fed impulses into the Moor's nerve strands. Across 12 ships, sphincter-like launch ports dilated and expelled their deadliest children. The void blossomed. Swarms of coral spores spilled into space. Billions of bioluminescent motes drifting outward in expanding clouds. Each microscopic organism carried the appetite of a furnace, bred to consume metals, sealants, and energy fields. Once they touched a hull, they multiplied exponentially, eating faster the more they fed. Whole fleets had been reduced to drifting skeletons in minutes. To the Velith, it was more than a weapon. It was identity. The spores had secured their dominion for 3,000 years. They had never failed. "Bloom expanding," Drathis reported with pride. "They cannot run. They cannot hide. Their hull will be eaten. their crew dissolved. On the viewing membrane, the prey ship remained steady, still, waiting. On the USS Dakota, sensors tracked the clouds instantly. "Contact," reported Chief Collins from engineering. "Captain, we've got incoming biologicals. Cloud density suggests microorganisms of some kind." Morrison gave a slow nod. "Defensive posture, Chief." "Already on it," Collins replied. The Dakota's skin came alive. Hundreds of point defense laser nodes irised open across the hull. They were small, precise, built to track missiles and kinetic debris. Against spores, they were overkill. "Engage." The void lit up. Thin pulses of coherent light stitched outward in precise bursts. Thousands of beams fired in microsecond bursts, each one tuned automatically by the fire control core. To human eyes on the bridge, it looked like faint glitter. To the spores, it was annihilation. The Dakota's computer identified the frequency resonances that disrupted their cell structures, then killed them by the millions. Spores boiled, carbonized, and fell inert in seconds. The great glowing clouds collapsed into harmless vapor. "Threat neutralized," Collins reported, as calmly as if he'd cleared a clogged air filter. "Point defense worked perfectly. We're clear." Morrison leaned back in his chair, glancing at the now empty tactical display. Was that supposed to be an attack? His words carried through still open monitoring channels across the void. On the Clithera's moor, silence fell. Velith stared at the tactical return as his heart sank. The great bloom, the spores that had devoured fleets, the terror of 1,000 conquests, had simply vanished. "Impossible," Drathis whispered, his 6 eyes wide. "The coral spores eat through everything. They have never failed. Never." And yet the void showed nothing but drifting ash. Velith forced his mandibles closed, but the tremor in his legs betrayed him. The prey had swatted aside their most feared weapon like smoke in the wind. He realized something terrible. The spores had been designed to defeat every material the Velith had ever known, but the humans had built from other principles, their alloys, their coatings, their countermeasures. None were in the archive. The spores had met something new, and they had died. "Commander," Drathis croaked, "our strength, our history, what are they?" Velith did not answer, because he knew. History was irrelevant when the future belonged to someone else. On the Dakota, the crew exchanged quiet, incredulous looks. The aliens' most spectacular opening move had been a non-event. Amy Foster shook her head. "Captain, if that was their best shot, we're not in much danger." "Don't underestimate them," Morrison replied. His tone was steady, but his eyes were sharp. "Desperate enemies make stupid choices. Stupid choices get people killed." Lisa Park spoke from comms, glancing up from her console. "Sir, the alien channels are unencrypted. I think they're broadcasting internally. Our systems are translating." Morrison gave a nod. "Put it through. Let's hear what they think of us." Alien voices filled the bridge, raw with disbelief. "The spores are gone. No defense is that precise. How can they see? How can they kill so quickly?" The humans listened, and for the first time, the Velith's confidence cracked openly. On the moor, Velith sat rigid, staring at the fortress that still waited with all its weapons trained. It had not fired a shot. It had not even moved. And yet the Dominion had already lost the opening blow. The Clithera's maw breathed slow and heavy, the sound of its living lungs filling the silence. The Velith cluster had unleashed their spores, only to watch them vanish in flashes of human light. Sub-Commander Drathis whispered, "They were eaten. The coral spores have never failed." Varix said nothing. On the tactical display, 12 Dominion cruisers hung inside a perfect cage of targeting lines, every weapon from the human fortress locked and updated faster than Velith minds could follow. They were not predators, they were prey. Then the human voice came again, flat and unhurried. Was that supposed to be an attack? The words cut deeper than any weapon. "They are listening," one officer hissed. "They translate our choir bands." Varix's mandibles tightened. The humans not only understood their words, they were broadcasting calm dismissals over open channels. He had never heard such arrogance. He had also never heard such certainty. On the Dakota, Captain Morrison remained composed. "Comms, feed me their chatter." Lisa Park obliged. Translated voices filled the bridge. "No defense could do that. This cannot be one ship. If there is an admiral, there is a fleet." Morrison gave a faint smile. "Good. Let them wonder." He tapped a secure line. "Send to Admiral Chen. First contact, unknown biomechanical fleet. Threat assessment, minimal. Request next phase instructions." The alien channels spiked immediately. "Admiral. Fleet. Many ships. How many mountains do they have?" Lieutenant Amy Foster leaned in. "Sir, they think we're a scout." "Let them," Morrison said. On the moor, Drathis paced. "Admiral, fleets. If this is one ship—" "Enough!" Varix cut him off, though the thought chilled him too. If this fortress was only a piece of something larger, the Dominion had stepped into a storm. A transmission flared again, and Morrison's face appeared on Velith screens. Calm. Steady. "Commander Varix," he said, "you came here expecting emptiness. You found us. Before we go further, I'll show you why we'd prefer this conversation stay civil." He cut the line. "Engineering," Morrison said. "Status on the mains?" "All green. Ready to sing," Collins answered. "Good. Target that iron-nickel rock at their flank," Morrison ordered. On the moor, Varix felt the dread ripple through his crew. They understood now. The humans weren't speaking from pride or even threat. They were about to demonstrate. And for the first time in his long career, Varix realized the Dominion's 3,000 years of ritual meant nothing against a species that bent the laws of matter to its will.
The moor's hull shivered as every choir matrix in the Velith cluster screamed a warning. Energy surged from the human fortress, unlike anything they had ever recorded. "Commander!" Drathis cried. "Their main organ, charging, energy levels beyond comprehension." "Hold!" Varix said, though his throat was dry. "Watch!" Out in the void, the USS Dakota's main railgun prepared to fire. Magnetic coils the size of towers drank power from the reactors, bending space with the strain of their charge. For 30 seconds, the vacuum trembled with the resonance of pure physics wound tight as a bowstring. Then the fortress sang. The discharge outshone the local sun for an instant. A tungsten rod, several tons of simple metal, leapt from the coils at a fraction of light speed. It screamed past the Velith formation, its wake rattling the sensory pits of every living ship, and struck a drifting asteroid far beyond. The rock, kilometers wide, iron and nickel solid as bone, ceased to exist. One moment, stone. The next, a newborn starburst. Incandescent plasma expanding in silence, debris blown outward at velocities no ship could match. The demonstration was complete. No mysticism, no ritual, no genetic artistry, just mass and velocity applied without mercy. On the moor, silence reigned. The crew stared at the expanding fireball, at sensors that struggled to quantify the energy released. The numbers were meaningless. "By the drowned deep," Drathis whispered, "they weaponize the universe itself." Varix felt his mandibles tremble. The spores had failed. The plasma would fail. Nothing alive could argue with that strike. Across open channels, Morrison's voice came calm as ever. "Kinetic energy. We find it very reliable." The understatement broke something inside the Velith. On the Dakota's bridge, the crew worked with quiet precision, as though nothing unusual had happened. Amy Foster checked targeting screens. Collins confirmed reactor load. Lisa logged the demonstration for command. To them, it was routine. To the Velith, it was the end of history. Morrison leaned forward slightly, his tone almost conversational. "Commander Varix, here are your orders. You will withdraw. You will inform your superiors that this sector belongs to humanity. Any Dominion ship found here after 72 hours will be destroyed without warning. This is not a negotiation." The ultimatum carried across 12 living bridges like a tidal wave. The Dominion had never been given terms before. They were the ones who set them. Yet here was a single human captain, speaking as though he held authority over the stars themselves. Varix drew himself tall, forcing his voice steady. "You are one ship against the might of the Velith Dominion. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Our fleets number in the hundreds. You cannot stand against such power." Morrison's response was immediate, stripped of drama. "Then you know what conquest looks like." The words hit harder than the railgun. The humans were not new to this. They understood conquest. They spoke of it with the casual tone of veterans. Varix's mandibles clenched, but the fight had already drained from his bones. He gave the only order left. "All ships, hold. Prepare withdrawal." The Dakota's main gun powered down with a sigh. Across the void, the Velith cruisers began to turn, their luminous colors dimmed, their spiral broken. Predators retreating for the first time in 3,000 years. Morrison watched their motion with quiet satisfaction. "Good choice," he murmured. Then, louder, across the open channel, "Commander Varix, you have 72 hours. Use them wisely." The Moor's crew worked in silence, shame pressing on their shoulders as the cluster angled for jump space. Varix gave no speeches. There was nothing left to say. As the Velith fleet prepared to slip away, the human captain's voice came one last time, steady and almost friendly. "Oh, Commander," Morrison said, "when you report back, be clear about one thing. The Dakota is a patrol ship. We have much larger vessels if the situation requires them." The channel closed. For a long time, no one on the moor spoke. The words hung heavier than any weapon. Patrol ship. If this mountain was only an outpost, then what did human fleets look like? Varix thought of the archive of thorns, of the 3,000 years of Dominion triumphs. All of it now felt like brittle parchment held too close to a flame. "Commander," Drathis whispered finally, his voice hoarse with disbelief, "what are they?" Varix gave the only honest answer. "The end of our world." On the USS Dakota, Morrison sat back in his chair, as if the matter were settled. The crew returned to their consoles, resuming patrol routines. To them, it was another day's work. monitor space, keep notes, send reports. But in the distance, the asteroid's expanding plasma cloud burned bright against the stars, a silent monument to the moment everything changed.
The Velith Dominion had thought themselves unchallenged masters of the galaxy. Now they knew a simple truth. There were new hunters in the dark, and they built their ships from mountains,